Excuse you, Harmon.
Fuck you, Margaret.
This is my official, well-formatted essay about this thing. You can tell from the first line it's legitimate. It says, by looking at the thumbnail, I might know what you're thinking, and no, it's not a joke video. I vaguely enjoyed the Queen's Gambit. It was a nice watch. And I also vaguely enjoyed It Takes Two, perhaps largely because I was playing with my friend Ken, but also because, you know, it was good. But just good. They were both just good. And after having had time to kind of think about why they were just good, I kind of found I had very similar critiques for the two of them. I would say, I guess, starting off, where my kind of initial expectations of both of them were kind of just thrown off. I kind of assumed the opposite of what was actually going on for each of them. Started watching Queen's Gambit because I was like, okay, yeah, I've been into chess lately, and hey, they've got a whole show on chess just for me. That's fun. So usually, you know, you see like a sports movie or something like that, and they've got a little bit of drama here and there, but it's mostly, you know, like a feel-good story about, you know, the triumph of the human spirit or something like that. So I was expecting a cute little chess show, but this shit's fucking dark, dude. That was sad. I had like trouble getting through episodes. That was not the happy-go-lucky tale I was hoping for, or at least expecting. And then you turn around and you play It Takes Two, and you learn that the premise is this couple, you know, they're getting divorced and they're fighting, and so I'm thinking, oh, this is gonna be a big drama Monday. But the whole thing is like this Toy Story, happy-go-lucky, everything's fine mood to it the whole time. It's like they knew I was going to be going through each of them near the same point in time, and they were just like, let's switch it up on them. He'll never know. You learn pretty quickly through both of the medias that the main characters, you do find yourself rooting for them, but the more things they say and the more things they do, turns out they're kind of bad people. Beth Harmon kind of just like goes from person to person and just kind of uses them, finds ways to better other people's lives, and kind of just moves forward because she's doing her own thing. Steals things, lies, self-sabotages herself at like every single turn. And then you've got May and Cody, who somehow are locked inside of the movie Toy Story itself, and they think that the grand like solution to all their problems is to make their child cry. And when they think that's the solution, they're not like, oh no, there has to be another way. They're just like, yes, boom, on it. And they just go for it. It's insane. Yet despite this, they're likable in these kind of unique ways that you still keep rooting for them, even though they're not really amazing people on like a moral scale. The focus of both of these medias I thought could have been a little bit tighter. It just seems like they were kind of jumping around from thing to thing, and that kind of weakened what could have been a more strong overall thesis to either of them. Definitely the overarching kind of theme of Queen's Gambit was addiction. But it kind of starts that way, and then it goes into her being a girl, and you're kind of just like, why are they talking about her being a girl? But then it's not about that for long, because then you've got these flashbacks with her mother and her past that never really has any kind of context to anything that happens later on. And then here and there you get these small, like, little parts of Queen's Gambit that's actually about chess.
It's mostly about my being a girl.
Well, you are one.
Shouldn't be that important. They didn't print half the things I said. They didn't tell about Mr. Scheibel, and they didn't say anything about how I play the Sicilian.
And it's not to say it never finds success in its jumping around. I would say that you could definitely try very hard to find some kind of meaning in it, like how she kind of uses people and goes from thing to thing. You could probably take her and all the characters she meets and put it into some kind of perspective where each character represents a chess piece, and as she moves and sacrifices them, it's to better... You know, you could probably read it that way, but honestly...
Do you imagine that you saw the king as a father and the queen as a mother? I mean, one to attack, one to protect. They're just pieces.
With everything going on here, it gets lost, and...
The analytical part of me wants to examine it. But I know it has no content.
In Video Game Donkey's review of Mario Odyssey, you might remember him saying this.
Instead of squeezing the potential out of everything you can capture, it's constantly moving on to the next idea.
And then in Luke Ward's review of It Takes Two, you might remember him saying something similar.
Every ability goes hand in hand with each other, and they keep these abilities moving. They never dwell on an idea too long, so it doesn't really have a chance to get stale.
This is a whole bowl of worms I'm not going to get into right now. But let me just, I guess, spoil a video that I'm going to come out with someday. I don't necessarily agree with this ideology. I would kind of rather these mechanics be more focused on, more fleshed out. In It Takes Two, it kind of seems like we're jumping from this, okay, now you got a magnet on your back, okay, now we're shooting bees and stuff, and then, oh, now we're doing this. It's just like, it was really hard to find, I guess, depth in any one mechanic when they just jumped around from thing to thing. And while that kept things interesting, it's not necessarily required. And if I'm supposed to kind of be playing this game, doing what the divorce book says, and trying to find some kind of meaning out of all of these little activities they're having you do, shouldn't those mechanics, shouldn't those activities be more fleshed out so that we can kind of derive meaning from it? This is something I think's done better in a game like Tale Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. That's what it's called. Actually, ironically, by the same director that did It Takes Two. You're greeted with a very limited amount of mechanics with the two brothers. They can like lift things, carry things together, give each other boosts, and that's about it. But there's a variety of situations and encounters that kind of builds up to these select moments where you have to split off, or one person has to cover something while the other has to cover something else going on. And you can really feel that responsibility, that bond that the two brothers have, how important it is, which kind of builds up to the end where you kind of learn how special and how really pivotal required that bond is for the two brothers. And It Takes Two, you kind of just feel like, okay, May, you go that way, Cody, go that way, you press a button on that side and I'll swing on a thing on the other, and that's how we'll solve the puzzle. It was much more gamey and really not enough rhetoric there. A lot of things were thrown in just as kind of like fun or happy feels. Like what was the daughter could have been taken out of the game. There was no point for the daughter being there. She had like no agency except for being this weird looking alien kid. The endings of each of these really got me. I was like, aw, I feel something in this. And then I waited a couple days and I was like, should I really have felt anything in those situations? By the way, this is the big spoiler warning time here. So at the end of Queen's Gambit, you finally get Beth Harmon. She's looking up at the ceiling and she sees the chess pieces moving around, which is something that in her mind she thought she could only do while she's under the influence of drugs. And so it's like, wow, finally she pushed through. There's that, you know, resolve of the human spirit I was looking for in my little sports show that I thought I was watching. And it's a good moment. It's a nice moment. However, if you know anything about addiction, you know what kind of like a small victory that is in the grand scheme of things if you actually care about the character and not just the chess tournament. All throughout the show, you just see her failing and using people and stealing and failing, and then you get this really great triumphant moment. Then afterwards, she's just like riding around in the limo, and then she's like, nah, I'm gonna get out here, I'm gonna beat these old men at chess. And that's like the happy-go-lucky thing we're supposed to like take away from it. I don't know, I feel like the ending just kind of gave us a happy moment without kind of the guarantee or promise that anything about the character had actually been resolved. The exact same thing happens in It Takes Two. At the end, you know, May and Cody share that very, you know, climactic kiss, and then they get turned back into humans and then go save their daughter from getting on the bus, I guess. But if you look back at everything, and this connects back to, you know, just jumping from thing to thing, nothing actually ever gets solved. You have Cody who wants to, you know, pursue his passions, you know, for gardening and stuff. And it's like, oh, you really do like gardening, huh? And that's kind of all that's said about it. And then you've got May and her passions for singing, and, you know, her wanting to be the breadwinner, her working and stuff. And I just found it funny. It's like at the end of those sections, they're kind of like, May, you need to be at home more. And then May's like, Oh, but if I'm not at work, we'll lose our home. What do you mean?
If I lost my job, we'd lose everything.
Okay. And I'm like, okay, so how are they gonna solve it? And then it just transitions into the next level, like nothing actually gets solved. Again, just like Queen's Gambit, it's this nice moment that doesn't actually have us learning about anything. Now, despite all this critique, and I realize that that's been the entirety of this video, there were a lot of nice things about the show and the game. You know, you've had very good one-liners and pretty funny and happy moments, and you know, they were a lot of fun. But honestly, I think the root problem with both of them is they just did not have enough chess.